Just 2 weeks to go now until the good people of Queensland get the chance to get rid of this bloody awful government. Voting has already started. Early voting started on Monday. We're into day 3 of it. Well and truly, more than 200,000 people have already voted. That is up on the same time 4 years ago, as people are ready to get rid of this government. Now, the Courier Mail did something very clever. They didn't just do a normal poll. They did a poll of the people who were voting early. They did this in about 10 different seats and they asked about 1,000 people. That's statistically quite relevant, and it was pretty much the same result on day 1 of early voting as it ended up being at the end of the election. So let's have a look at what they've been able to follow. Have a look here. The LNP is up, according to this exit poll voting, up by 12 and a bit %. Labor down 9 and a bit %. KAP is down a little, the others are down a little, the Greens are down a little. The only Green otherwise you can see is for One Nation. That's going to matter in a couple of different seats. But obviously, primary vote, this is a preferential election. If you've got a primary vote of, let's say, 45 and above, then most likely in a state that has places like the KAP and One Nation, pulling some pretty big numbers in the areas that matter most. This is very good news for those of us that would like to see that change. But don't just assume your neighbour's going to do it. You're the one that's going to have to do it. The exit poll on day 2 of early voting indicates that voters in 3 Townsville seats and Mackay, along with several South East Queensland electorates, are about to remove the 9-year Labor government from office. They will do so in just 2 weeks from now on Saturday, October the 26th. Crime, cost of living are the #1 issues that are worrying for Labor, as its predicted loss of at least 3 ministers could be on the cards, including with Megan Scanlon and Slick Mick Dabrini. Now, let's have a look at seat by seat. Every one of these seats that you can see in your graphic is currently held by the Labor Party. Now, Cairns, you would say, with 37-36 means that the preferences of One Nation and the Greens really matter there. Now, I've often talked about in federal elections that if you vote, say, in this case, One Nation won, but you put the LNP second last and Labor last, there's a very good chance that you're going to end up with a Labor seat. Now, obviously, most One Nation's people, well, they'll put the Greens dead last. But my suggestion is if you want to get rid of the government, you vote One Nation or Katter 1, and then, obviously, the LNP at number 2. So Cairns, line ball, but most likely it looks like it will end up falling based off those preferences. In Caloundra, if you've got a 50% primary vote, well, obviously preferences will get you up and over the edge. They will win that seat. In the seat of Gavin, the same thing. If you've got it in the mid to high 40s in your primary vote, up 13 compared to Labor, down 11, you're looking good. In Greenslopes and in Mackay, the primary vote, according to the exit poll, after the first couple of days, would show a massive jump of either 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 voters getting behind the LNP compared to where they were 4 years ago. I repeat, One Nation preferences matter, Greens preferences matter, particularly in the seat of Cairns. Let's keep looking. In the seats of McConnell, Redlands, Rockhampton, Thuringoa and in Springwood. You can see here too, a primary vote at 46, 52, 56 and 51, but in Rockhampton. The One Nation preferences will decide who wins that seat. I repeat, if you want to vote One Nation, 1, give them a chance to win the seat. Good luck to you. But number 2 is who you want to be the government. If you want it to be the Labor Party or you want it to be the LNP, that's who you pick as your number 2. Again, the primary vote up 15, 13, 9, 25% in Thuringoa. That is phenomenal. Again, the numbers that came in were pretty accurate 4 years ago. It doesn't mean they're automatically accurate this time. All signs pointing in the right direction. But please, please remember, where you put the major parties matter. You put them all last, you're going to get Labor. You put the LNP way higher than Labor, you're more likely to get LNP, and that obviously is what I believe Queensland deserves. Plenty of people voting early. They cannot wait to get rid of this government. We'll get more numbers by this time again tomorrow. Today in Brisbane, there was a big event where the 2 major party leaders were meeting for one of another debate. The People's Forum will be in the final week of the campaign. That's when we will be in Queensland next week, so the pressure will be on for that. Cannot wait to see what 100 undecided Queensland voters have to say to the leaders directly. But here's 4 things I want to bring out of this debate today. Miles is pushing a lie. It is a lie that abortion is going to be changed in Queensland. Yes, there are some Conservative LNP MPs who would like a vote on it, but it's not going to happen. And let's even imagine if there was some bizarre reason there was a conscience vote, all the Labor MPs, all the Greens MPs and the extreme majority of the LNP would mean there will be no change. Doesn't mean Miles isn't trying to scare, particularly the women of Queensland.
He can't give an honest answer about what he believes when it comes to women's reproductive rights, despite being asked 131 times now.
It's just extraordinary, isn't it? OK, they asked the question 132 times. He says the same thing 132 times. We're not changing. There's no different version of it. Yes, there are some people that will want to change, but there are some people inside the Labor Party who will want to change on decriminalising of drugs. The reality is that David Crisafulli, as the leader of the party, if they have a majority, will go nowhere near it. The only vote that may take place is if the Qatar Australia Party ends up in a position where they are required to help form a majority government. Now, yes, this is all statistically possible. It is all very possible. However, if there was a vote in the parliament, the extreme majority of people would make no change. So that's the lie that he's going to push. He's pushing it in his ads. It may well be effective as inevitably polls do start to tighten, but I don't expect them to tighten anywhere that will see Miles even heading towards a minority government, let alone a majority government. For his part, David Crisafulli knows he hits a home run, or hits it for six every time youth crime or crime is brought up.
What does it mean for Queensland to wake up on the 27th of October to a fourth term and 14 years of this government? What does it mean to Victor White, who lost his wife allegedly at the hands of repeat young offenders, and the other 289,657 victims of the youth crime crisis? And what does it mean for the safety of your family in the next 4 years? Imagine waking up to 4 more years of that. Or a vote for change, a fresh start.
Now, I like in these debates that they get an opportunity to ask each other questions. This was one about crime where Miles has gotten nowhere to run.
Premier, adult crime, adult time is part of a plan to change youth justice laws that your Labor government weakened. Stephen, regardless of the election result next Saturday, will you today commit to making these laws by Christmas?
Well, thanks for your question, David. And first of all, can I correct you? That's not a plan, that is a slogan. It's a 4-word slogan that even your own team admits came out of a focus group. It's not thought through. You can't find a single expert to stand up with you and say it will make a difference. It's estimated to increase the detention population by 50%. You say that will happen by Christmas, but there is no detailed plan for how you will accommodate all of those additional detainees.
I guess that's no.
Now, disgraceful little bit of, jumping around you saw there from Miles. The new laws of adult crime, adult time will be introduced by Christmas. And then he turns around and tries to worry people that the prison population may increase by 50%. Good. It's what the people of Queensland want. They want people who are committing violent crimes, regardless of whether they are teenagers, people in their 20s, or people who are much older and should know much better, to go to jail. Forever? No, it's not murder. But people need to go to jail. If that is going to increase the number of people in the jails, then guess what? Build bigger jails. I don't think anyone in Queensland would have a problem with the proposition that's being placed. But nice try from Miles to try to pretend that all of this must happen before the end of the year. The law's before the end of the year, and then, by his own estimates, a lot more people get locked up. Good. Crisafulli needs to do better when he's answering questions about funding, particularly about tax.
35 times you or your shadow ministers have met with coal mining companies, executives or lobby groups. You gave a speech at a parliamentary function this week recently, where you said they could take your commitments to the bank. What are those commitments?
That when we set a tax scheme, it should count for something.
Now, 2 weeks to go. They're trying to save, obviously, the reality that half vote early, half vote on election day. They do need a little bit more meat on the bone there, no question whatsoever. But if anyone thinks that that is a reason why Queensland shouldn't change a government, you have not been paying attention to what's been happening in Queensland, be it from afar, like me, or those who live, like oh so many, particularly watching us on Sky News Regional. You've got the chance to make a change less than 2 weeks from now. And final question, Anastasia Palaszczuk. Well, despite the fact that, of course, we know that if she was at this election, she'd be facing pretty much the same result, the same drubbing. She got out, so she doesn't have to live with that legacy. But Stephen Miles was asked whether he's become his own man after being her deputy every single day of the last term of Parliament.
You both believe that you've been able to step out of the shadow of your predecessors and former premiers Anastasia Palaszczuk and Campbell Newman.
Who wants to jump in here?
Well, I reckon I have. I'm pretty proud of what we've been able to do over these last 10 months.
Please, this bloke, all he has done in the past 10 months is turn a budget surplus into a budget deficit with a promise of an even deeper one so he can stand in front of a slogan. As for the idea that the LNP Premier 3 elections ago, please, they've played that scare every single election to full effect. It will not work this time. But Queensland, it's not up to the polls, it's not up to me, it's up to you. Flush them and flush them hard, including with your preferences.